And Mike, if I want something different in my smartphone, I just have to go out and buy a new smartphone. Because it comes as a package and you don't even open it. And today, even with the iPhones, you really don't have access to the battery or anything. But I hear, when I'm reading up on PSION, I hear a lot about modular and the ability to mix and mash and upgrade. What does that mean? And what does the device look like that would enable that kind of support?
Well, if you look at our devices, first of all, they don't look like an iPhone. They don't look like a BlackBerry. They are larger, slightly larger than that.
Okay.
They have two things that really separate them. Number one is they can be configured with a handle so that you use it like a pistol grip, which makes it much more ergonomic. And the second piece, they almost all have a keyboard on them. Because if you're trying to operate our devices with a gloved hands or with big fingers or in an environment that's a little shaky, is a touch screen doesn't get you very far.
Okay.
So it's structured for a little bit more of an industrial or dedicated environment. But beyond that, if you looked on the outside, you wouldn't realize our devices were modular. But they are structured so that they can be easily disassembled or partially disassembled and upgraded. We have on our Omni platform around 10 different keyboards, depending on what region you're in, if you want a numeric or a QWERTY or a telephony type keyboard, and so you can easily swap out that keyboard as necessary based on your local requirements. Within our scan engines, we have about a dozen different scan engines, whether it's an imager, a 1D laser, a 2D laser, a long-range scanner, or even an RFID module. So you can replace some of these internal modules based on what your needs are. I mentioned the T-handle on it, the pistol grip. You can take that pistol grip off or install it as your needs change. And you can even change the type of screen technology, whether it's a high visibility screen or in some cases an extra rugged screen where you may be taking a lot of large impacts directly to the screen and you want to prevent it from cracking or breaking. Now, in a typical consumer phone, let's say you're buying an iPhone, I think you have an option of 2 or maybe 3 memory sizes. For us, it's much more than just the memory size. It's what type of radio technology do you need, what type of scanning technology you need, how large of a battery do you want to install in this device. And it gives the users much more flexibility to get the product exactly right for what their needs are when they order it. And then, 2 to 3 years down the road, if the technology in your environment changes, if your warehouse goes from a 2D standard or a 1D barcode scan to a 2D barcode technology, or you pick up a new partner that says, I want RFID clips on all of my packages, instead of having to go back and replace the entire lot of PSION devices, it allows you to change that subcomponent. And for a fraction of the price, you can adapt to the environment around you without being locked into a somewhat antiquated technology. And as you and I both know, Kevin, what is going to be around the corner 2 or 3 years from now, we can speculate, but certainly it's nobody knows for sure.
Right. So I imagine there's some future proofing with that component modular format.
That's exactly right. It gives you a lot of future proofing. It helps you make a wiser business decision today because you know that as the world changes, if you've bet wrong on your initial investment, you can easily modify that in the future.
Absolutely. Now, in looking at your website, Mike, you also have some, I see the industrial devices, the big ruggedized, I think they're Workabout Pros and some other things like this. But you also have one that looks like a smartphone. Which one's that?
Oh, I'm glad you brought that up because we just launched a new product. It's kind of our pride and joy, and it's called the PSION EP10. Early on in the conversation, we talked about the merging of the consumer devices and this ruggedized sector. And part of that is we see the need for devices that are a little bit of a hybrid of both.
Okay.
People are more price sensitive. People are size sensitive. People want to make sure that they have some of the latest technologies. And we've launched the latest product called the EP10. Okay. It looks like more like a BlackBerry, although the screen size on it is 3.7 inches, same size as roughly an iPhone. It does have a keyboard on it, a smaller keyboard on it. It's obviously still a touch screen. It is larger than a traditional smartphone, but it's still small enough that it'll fit in your shirt pocket. Now, what makes that product unique is it's based on the core technology of our larger devices. It's a very powerful small handheld computer, but it integrates an imager, meaning I can scan with that device on a true dedicated imager, 2D barcodes, 1D barcodes, something that a consumer device or a smartphone, none of them can do. And we've integrated inside of that the largest array of interactive sensors of any device in the market. Now, what do I mean by that? Apple actually, I think, did a really good job on their iPhone several years ago when they integrated GPS and they integrated gravity sensors or accelerometers and a number of different things so that the product could be more interactive with the environment of which it's held. We've taken that same general philosophy and integrated it into a commercial device. So our device has light sensors in it, so it knows how bright it is. It has proximity sensors in it, so it knows if the user is close to it or if it's being held up to your face. It has accelerometers on it, so it knows if the product's being dropped or which way is magnetic, or which way is up, I should say.
Okay.
It has a gyroscope in it. It has a magnetometer in it, meaning a compass, and it obviously has GPS. So when you put all of these pieces together through either PSION software or software from other vendors, you can make it do very interesting things to make it more adaptable and more intelligent for the specific tasks that people are trying to do. Devices like that are targeted primarily at field users. These are the people that are going to come to your business or come to your home, fix your washer and dryer, deliver a package, or deliver services directly to your business.
So, Mike, can you give us and the listeners some examples of all these sensors? I'm fascinated by the whole concept of having an interactive device that knows a lot more about its surroundings. But when you look out there in the field to some of your customers, how are they taking advantage of those?
Well, it's a great point, and this is one of the things I think is exciting about trying to predict the future. We knew at first when we developed this product that if the hardware was not in the device with the sensors, the market would never mature around it. You can't build a piece of software to do something if you don't have the raw sensor inside of it to give it the right information. So we knew we had to lead with the hardware, which is what we did. And so now that that technology is in there, we see more and more customers starting to adopt it and integrate it into their core software technology. So to give you some examples, when you actually scan something, you may scan a box, you may realize that there's damage to that box, so you can stand back, you can snap a picture of it. The GPS coordinates would be stamped on that actual photo. It would note the time and day, and it could be automatically uploaded with the RFID scan or the barcode scan into the overall system so they know exactly what time of day it was and where it was located in the world. That's one that's fairly straightforward and easy to understand.
Yeah.
There's other more subtle things that we can do. For instance, when the person puts the product down on a desk and walks away, it'll automatically go into suspend mode. When you pick up the product and you want to talk on it like a cell phone, which you obviously can, it will automatically turn off the screen because it realizes you can't see the screen if it's up against your face. And you start tying all of this together and you can do some interesting applications. You see the same thing with an iPhone and the App Store and even with the Android store as well, of the proliferation of games and other unique things that you can do with these smartphones. Now, that market has matured for 24, 36 months. We're still in the earlier stages of this happening in the commercial space, but it is happening, and we're happy to be a leader and on the forefront of that, allowing our developers to go develop those custom pieces of software around our unique hardware solution.
Well, Mike, I want to thank you for joining us today, and I just find all of this very fascinating because, so many of us have kind of now, me, I'm coming out of the field services space over the last decade, but a lot of people have never been exposed, and so all they've seen is consumer-grade phones. But to know what's available in all these other areas is just fascinating. Now, I'm sure the issue comes up immediately about total cost of ownership. Is it cheaper to go through 2 or 3 or 4 iPhones as opposed to buying a purpose-built, ruggedized one? But I think you've addressed that very successfully as well. It's not so much about the broken device as the lost work, the unhappy customer, the need to return to the project to complete it. All of those things is what really adds up the high cost, isn't it, Mike?
That's exactly right. And I think the way that we look at the overall market is the need for information, real-time information, is making the entire commercial infrastructure more efficient, more productive. And we're happy to be a part of that, but we want to be a part of that where somebody can actually benefit for our technology. If you have a user that is lightly using their cell phone or their smartphone, and it's not unlike maybe what you and I use from a personal level, I would never encourage them to buy a ruggedized device just because.
Right.
If they can get their current technology to work and it's less expensive, then that's probably the logical solution. What we find with most of our customers, though, is if they are dedicated 8 hours a day or 10 hours a day doing field service or doing another application, especially where they have to do scan technologies or imaging technologies, and you want to have a very repetitive task, is the commercial stuff just doesn't cut it. You can make that end user, more productive on an ongoing basis, as well as preventing them from downtime, and that's where our value add really comes into play.
Perfect. Mike, I want to thank you again for joining us.
Wonderful. It was nice to talk to you again, Kevin. Thanks so much for your time today, and thanks for inviting me on.